This is Short Hammer. It is the 21st of February, 2021. And this is Trading Zones. So, this past week was interesting. We did have a little bit of a pullback in the market. And let's go to the charts. So, if we look at the the MES, what we see is a pullback. We dropped. We back tested the 39.36 area. And from there, we had negative drift, right? But once we touched the 38.88, we bought back up, pushed back through the 39.20s. Um, and then we pulled back down short of touching the 39.36. So what is this showing us? You could draw like a kind of trend, downtrend here, but we are slightly downtrending, slightly negative drift. Um, there's just a lot of news in the market right now, and there are a lot of different things going on that are impacting the overall market. And people are talking about, gamma unwinding as far as the options market, and that's an interesting topic for those that want to get into it. But just purely looking at these technicals, what we want to watch for this upcoming week. Do we retest the 38.88 level here? And if we do, if we look at this since the 7th of February, right? Each time that we've pulled down, and this is on a 4-hour chart, each time that we've pulled down to 38.80s, look at these lower wicks. We've spent no time down there. So since this break here, right, back in the beginning of February, we have been unable to get any negative drift below the 38.80s. So what's that tell us, right? If we get a day that we get below this, that will open up the 38.56, the 38.17s. Once we hit the 38.56, see how this appears to be some sort of a plateau? Look at these hitches right here, here, and here, right? So if we get below this 38.88 area, we can look to see, and what you want to see is a close below here, and then you want bearish continuation down. How does that look? So bearish continuation down would be, let's see. Well, this is kind of an example of, we don't have much in this market, right? This market's been nuts, but actually here's one. So popped above, this was a level, we broke, saw the hitch, pulled back, held, went up, couldn't make a higher high, which is a sign. Look at these upper wicks and lower highs each wick. And then we sell through and we break this level. And then we have slight bearish continuation down, right? And we touch these next levels. And for example, if you're short this, if you see this and you get short this, you exit some here at this level, right? If you play this breakdown on the 1-hour chart, it's more pronounced, the candle by candle. But if you're playing this, when it touches this next level, you're out. At least 75% of your position. You don't try to hold this for the entire move. I mean, some people do, but the probabilities are less in your favor the further we extend. When you're short, when we start to hit these little demand pockets, right? That's what we call these lines, demand pockets. And just like the other way, right? If you're long, when you hit these supply pockets, each pocket that you hit as you go higher, the probabilities are less in your favor for continuation. And that's just, how we trade level to level. So back to the current situation here. So watch next week, see if we can regain the 39.20s. If we regain the 39.20s, then there may be an opportunity for us to regain the short-term uptrend, right? Because long-term we're uptrending in the market, period, right? And a lot of people predicting the 4K mark, and we'll see if that happens. This could just have been a cooling off period that will allow us to push back up. We have to wait and see how this plays out this week. But this is an interesting uh, sort of setup, I'll say. And we have to see if this continues into next week. And if we can get below the 3880s, that's sort of what I would be watching. If we hold the 3880s and so we stay in this zone, if we buy back above the 3920s, then we have to see if we hold above and we get extension up into the 3936 area and potentially higher. But that's something to watch because on this dip down from these highs, the back tests here and here, there were no buyers, right? They just sold this and we kept going down. We did find buyers, a demand pocket here at 3880s that pushed us back up to 3920s, but we couldn't catch buyers above this to give us the next leg to regain the momentum to sort of to retest these highs. So right now, we just haven't found the buyers, and we have to see when we hit this 3888 level again, will the buyers still be there? And if the buyers move out of the way, that opens up these lower levels. RTY. So if we're taking a peek at the rust, look at this. Tap, back tested, couldn't make a higher high. So what does that mean? Separation to the downside. Look at that. So what you watch for when you get another a retest of a previous high, three things can happen. Either you make a new high, right? That's one. Two, it can grind sideways like it did these few days, which could be a flat top and we can break. Or three, we can sell, which is what happened, which is awesome. And so we dipped. So what do we want to watch for, right? We pierced the 2211 area, but bought right back up above and legged through the upper supply, what would have been a supply pocket on the back test, went through that level, the 2230s, through the 2240s, and we're up here in the 2260s. Look at this pullback looking bullish. And if we hold these 2240s, I has to be on the 2290s. So just watch this level to see if we're able to buy back up. This is definitely, look at this, these little lower wicks here, right? Can we sort of regain this little escalator area and go back up into the 2290s? So we'll have to see. This could just be a pullback, but if you drew a trend line across here, we broke this short-term downtrend that we were on from the from the 16th, right? Look at this. If you're just watching this from this drop, we were just downtrending, and then we broke that. It's a strong break up. So we have to see if this continues or if this is just a bounce that leads to further selling. But this is a strong buyback up, right? A little bit similar to this, where we're selling, a little bit of buying, then we just break that downtrend and then we go. So we have to see if, you know, if this trend here, if that's broken, if we're able to buy back up above this. We have to see. So watch those levels. And so if I, just in case you can't see these levels clearly, to the upside 2290, then 2301, then 2313. To the downside below is 2247, 2234, 2211, and below that 2199. But on the last pullback, this swing low held above the 2190 area, even if it's just barely. Amazon. So looking at Amazon, Amazon was very interesting. And if you look at this range, we still have not gotten the separation that we've wanted. My last video, I didn't shrink this in a way that was meaningful to look at, right? So I need to zoom out. Look how long we spent in this channel. Look at this, right? Separation here, pulled us right back inside the channel, back test dip, bottom of the channel. Look at this. Break through the top of the channel. We're off to the races, right? Test these highs. Rejected initially. Push through, but we couldn't get bullish continuation above, right? These 3340s to separate, which is what we want. Sold back down right into the channel, but we didn't get negative drift to the bottom. We sort of bought back up here off the 3190s, and it drove us back to the upside. And on this break, the bullish separation that we saw here multi-day, once we got to the 3340s and we stayed bullish above that, this did give us a bit of hope that, hey, we might be cruising up here through the 3500s and maybe even higher. But that didn't last, and now we're drifting back down here, and we're almost back to the top of the channel again. So if I'm looking at Amazon, I'm cautious because just the amount of good news that has come out, um, Amazon should not be. I think the word is dilly dallying, if I want to use that word, um, around these 3200s at all. With all the the new the new, I wouldn't say new companies, but all the companies that have sort of moved so much of their business online. That's one. Two, with Whole Foods and Amazon taking I'll say a bigger responsibility as far as their delivery, where they're now delivering their own products, alongside a few other companies they still work with, but they're not delivering their own products. And with the holiday season just recently passing, you would think that Amazon would be pushing all-time highs. So that we're back still in these 3200s to me is really, really interesting. So with this week upcoming, watch to see if we hold the 3220s. If we pull back inside this channel and we do not hold the 3190s, I'd be watching for negative drift, and the 3140s are possible. Then lower here into the 3080s, which is the bottom portion of the channel. If we do happen to hold, there is a possibility for us to regain the 3260s, break the 3340s, and see a pop. Now, with Amazon, what you want to watch for is Amazon usually goes from contraction to expansion. So whatever range it remains in for a extended period of time, usually when it breaks that range, it will give you some serious movement, right? So we have to see um, if Amazon decides that it wants to go sideways for a bit. So I'm going to be watching this week to see these levels. This is a clear area here. Will we get back above the 3260s and will we be sort of bullish and break the 3340s and go? Or will we drift down into the 3220s, get below the 3190s, and there be negative drift? And the other option is that we go sideways and we channel a little bit. But those are some levels to watch on Amazon, right? And if you want the areas to the downside, it's 3320s, 3190s, 3142, 3080, and to the upside, 3340s, 3370, 3386, and 3430s. And above that, you have 3450, 3458, and then 3513s above that area on Amazon. Netflix. So on Netflix, what were we expecting? The expectation was a back test of this uptrend and that the buyers would step in and hold us above, right? And pardon me. So as I was saying, so the expectation was if we pull back into here that we would buy back up. The initial break, we did pull back to the trend, and if you see the in the after hours here on the 17th, they tried to give us another leg up, right? There was an attempt, but that attempt failed. And so we pull back below these 550s. And each time we pushed up in that area, we went to the downside, right? And what's the importance of these 550s? And just in case we forgot, I know we've mentioned this before, but each time we've pushed up into the above these 550s, we've sold back down near the 470s, right? Look at that. Then we break, push back up, get a leg into the 550s, back down to the 470s. Here we go again. And back down to the 470s, right? And here we went again. The difference this time, we pushed even higher. When we pulled back, the expectation was that we would find buyers here, right? Not the expectation, but that was one of the things that could happen technically, that the previous area that was a supply pocket has now become a demand pocket. And off of that area, we find new buyers. We didn't. And so we've been grinding in this area, but the momentum break to the upside just hasn't been there, right? The push into the 600s and for us to just see positive drift. So what does that mean? Well, it can mean a lot of things. I'm not going to get into all the potential scenarios, vaccines, will people be home and all those things. That's not important right now. So what we want to watch is if we can't get above the 550s, next up are the 535s, the 529s. There is a hitch in the 5 teens that we can hold, but we could also regain this uptrend and continue to break to the upside. But as you see here, what we saw was was a hitch at the 567 area, right? You see that here. We pull back up, dropped, tried to trampoline off the 550s and get back through the 567s, the upper 560s, mid 560s, you could say. We couldn't get to the 570s and we dropped. We bought back up here into the 560s again, 567. Look at this weird, right at this same area. Couldn't get through and we dropped again, right? So what you want to see is that we don't make a lower low wave here below this 515 area. If we do, we can go a little bit down, right? Might see some 470s. We'll see. But this is interesting. These are the levels to watch. Gave you these levels. We'll see if we buy back above the trend, if we regain that. If not, negative drift. NVIDIA's been nuts. So I have some wide lines on this. And if you're wondering why I didn't draw new lines at the top of this, just didn't really need them. I've been using pivots, right? And so the 589s was the area we got in. We sold each time. We rode these 514s for quite some time. Look at this. Each time went below, we sort of pulled back up above. And we broke again, pulled back to the 580s, and buyers stepped in. Now, what we need to do here on NVIDIA is make a new high. We need to go back through the 600s. If we do not go back through the 600s and we drift below the 580s, then there is a possibility we can go down, hit these 570s, and get a potential drift down. So we have to watch this hitch, this 569 area by the 577, see if the buyers step in there, if we have a deeper negative drift. If we hold these 580s and break the 600s, this 615, 616-ish area, we're off to the races. We have to see where that goes. But that's interesting on NVIDIA. We mentioned that they do have quite a few different news events as far as the electric vehicles and things that they're working on as far as their chips, right? It's really interesting for NVIDIA right now. So we have to see as they sort of encroach on a few other companies' turf, if they're able to sort of continue to press areas where they may have the technological advantage. So NVIDIA is really interesting. Technically, you could almost just do this, right? I'll just do a quick trend. Let's just go boom, right? You see these? This is a weird line. I don't even like this line. Let me remove that line. I don't like the way that line looks. Let's draw that again. This is just, let's say that's still weird. But we need to break back through there, right? So it's a zone that you want the 580s to hold, and you want us to drive through the 600s. We have to see. Keep it moving. Next up, Microsoft. And with Microsoft, this is what's interesting. You want the 540s to hold. And You want the 540s to hold is because since early February they've held, and when we pull back to the lower 540s, the buyers have stepped in and given us a little bit of push, right? But look at all this consolidation. So what I would be watching for one. So if these 240s don't hold, there's a potential drift to the 234 area, and we do have a hitch at the 238.90s potentially. You see this when we pull back, we sort of bought back up in here. But we do want these 240s to hold, and we want to drive back to 242s. We want to drive higher. When something is grinding like this and it's holding the bottoms, you want this to make new highs. And so being that we're pulled back to this area, it's sort of this magnetically drawn back to this area, does this mean that we're going to sell? Not necessarily, because what you want to see is that we have separation from the 240s. And once we have separation from the 240s, then we can have sort of a negative drift, right? Bearish candlesticks below this area will open up the lower area. To have these sort of hitches that you may see based on candle structure, but you have this open up this lower area. Just because since the 4th of February, each time we've pulled down, you've seen no closes below this 240.80 area. So if we close below the 240s, that will be different, right? We have to see if that happens. And yeah, and so that's interesting. So as far as Microsoft, they did do well on earnings. Multiple sectors they had great performance in. And so you would think that there would be continued drive to the upside, but sometimes investors would like it to cycle down to get a better entry for the year. So you sort of you want that risk to be down here if possible, or down here if possible. But the potential for this to go higher is still there if we hold these 240s. So we have to see where this goes next week. But these are some of the levels that we're watching. Over into Facebook, and Facebook being Facebook, just drifting lower. And so what you want to watch for on Facebook, right? Let me pull these out a little bit just so you can see these levels. Come on. So right here, roughly, right, the 267s, that was an area that we were unable to get above. Then we got above, and we saw a little bit of bullish separation. Back test, we want to go back up here, right? We don't want to be down here. And even if we dropped here, you want the buyers to step in here. They didn't. Look at the leg through. It gave you no what's the word, indication that it was gonna pull back up, and we have to see if we get a back test here into these 264 by 265 areas. But you saw the push into the drop before. If you look at this week, right, we were holding the 269s. Then we opened up on Friday at that 269 level, negative drift. Look at that drop. So going into this week on Facebook, I would watch to see if we hold the 260 area and buy back up to the 260 mids. If we do not and we roll, then that opens up the 254 area and then the 247s. And remember, the 244 by 247s was the area last time when we went that low that the buyer stepped in a strong way. And look at this previous dip, buyer stepped in a strong way. So do I think we're going to sell all the way down to here? Probably not. We just have to see how this shakes out. But this is a slight breaking pattern. That does not mean that this will be, selling all day or all week. We just have to watch what happens on Monday and see if the people that like to buy Facebook feel this is a good level where there's more risk, or there's less risk, and they feel that there's a greater chance that we can retrace up a few bucks, if not regain the 267s. Facebook is weird sometimes, so you really want to be careful not to assume that it will continue to go lower. But as long as these 260s hold, see this little gap area here, right back to that. As long as these 260s hold, there is the potential for a back test of the 263 to 265 area. So to see how that shakes out on Facebook. But they do have a few legal questions about the way that they do, as always, the way they this is nothing new for Facebook. Issues in Europe, issues with Congress in the US. They just have issues. So they've dealt with these issues and they've weathered the storm. So we have to see if this negative drift continues. But just remember those levels we mentioned, and we'll see how that works out. All right, Apple back to the 120s. Look at this, 127, almost exact that overnight, and we bought up a little bit. So on Apple, these 120s, when you stay above 125, it is an area where people have bought in the past, right? But I think we want to be careful not to assume that on Apple that this is a clear buy area and that we're definitely going back up. As far as if you're scalping this, that's fine. But if your expectation is this up here, not sure when we're going to get there. So for me, I'm going to watch in this zone, 127 to 131s. And if we get back above the 131s into the 132s, then that's cool. That will open up a rise into the 132.90s, 133s, into the 134.20s. If we drift below the 127s, that opens up the 124s. We have to see how that works, right? The last time that we went below, we bought right back above, and they popped it. And we made a higher high. Look at this, right? Pull back. And so we're holding this low still. So is there a potential for this to buy back up? Yes, there is a potential. Someone could say, hey, this is slightly head and shouldery. Maybe we're going to go lower. So we'll see how this works out on Apple. Pretty sure they're going to release some news or something, but we'll see how they, because this is a technical level. And so we have to see if they try to stimulate buying at this level to sort of push us back higher. We'll see how that works. But if we sell through these 127s, I'll be keeping an eye to see if we see drift to the 124s on Apple. But they did have news that they were no longer working on the electric vehicle situation. I believe they had, I can't remember the company that they were working with, but we'll see what else comes out with Apple. With Apple, you just got to be careful. You never know. There's always, the pump is always out there. Okay, so looking at Intel, back test, it held. If you remember what we discussed, we wanted to see if we would hold above this channel. Back tested overnight, held, buyer stepped in, higher high. So is 63.77 a possibility? Yes. So we have to see if we continue to go upwards, but there's a lot of strength here. So I would keep an eye on Intel and the upper levels. If we crest the 63.70s, 65.59, 66.38, 67.53. As long as we hold this channel, I think we're good. So we have to see if this continues to go up above. But someone did ask a question. I think we answered this. They're asking, did we think that Intel could break out? And we're just level to level traders. So what we mentioned was, hey, 58.85, watch 60.94. Once we got above here, we want this the top of this channel to hold. It held, and they're buying. So we'll see. To squeeze to the upside, but the next levels, the next areas to watch for. Once this dipped in here, post earnings on this buyback up, if you were bearish on this ticker, the most you wanted or would be comfortable with was a drift up into the 60.90s, but you'd want this to retrace to the bottom of the channel and do at least a little sideways action. That they bought this back through, there's definitely some strength there. We'll see how far this can go, though. CMG, everyone's favorite burrito. So with CMG, we Okay, let's go back to here. So the 1510s, right? Up until the beginning of February, we had challenges breaking above that. So we were in a bit of I'll say a small zone between the 1470s and the 1510s. And we had a gap up above 1548s. We pulled back through, but we held this 1470, 1468 area, right? And the buyer stepped in and pushed us back up near the 1510s. And look at how we hugged that, curved up, made a higher high, but pulled right back through it, through the 1460s, 1468, 1470-ish area, and pulled right back above. So we're still kind of in this little 1468, 1470 by 1510 area that we spent, what was this, from January into February, just like a week or two, right? So what we want to see is, do we see rise back into the 1510s? Is this just like an area we're going to channel through? And are we going to sort of bounce around a little bit, or are we going to buy back above? So we have to see how that works out on CMG. Very interesting. So we'll see how that shakes out on CMG. Let's head over to McDonald's. So McDonald's, interesting as usual. Let's kind of, okay. So McDonald's, 209s. Sometimes we see some drift down to the 206s. Up through the, I'll say the 215s, like 215-ish into the 216s is a channel, right? And it looks weird when you look at it on this chart this way, but if you look at the amount of time we spent in that area, you can go back to December, and that's how long we've been in this almost 10 to 7 point window right in here. So what am I watching for? Well, every time we hit these 216s, 216.90s, we go back down. And so will we sell back to the bottom of this area, the 209s to the 206s? We'll see. So that's what I'm watching for on McDonald's. We need to break the 216s into the 217s. And if we do that, the buyers step in. We can see the 221 area, maybe the 223s. Well, right now we're just stuck in this channel. We can't get out of this. It just each time we drift to the top, we just, sort of drift back down. Right now we're trying to hold these 212s. Look at this. These 213s, we're trying to hold that, but we're below that. We'll see if we see negative drift, but that we didn't buy up post earnings, that we did see this buy up off these 206s, but that we didn't get through the 216.90s or the upper 216s and break into the 217s. That's telling. We'll see if we're able to get above that area. But look, from December, how many candle closes do you see above the 216.95 area? On the 4-hour chart, I don't see any. Right. And so that to me is telling. That's telling me that the buyers don't see value above this, at least not so far based on this time. This is your time horizon, the month or two, right? So far in the last, let's just say 2 months, the buyers have not found value above the 216.90s, and in the last 2 months, right, the sellers have not found value below the 206s on McDonald's. That's just interesting. Can that change? At any time that can change. But it's a saying that when you trade, do what works until it stops working. So just interesting. Watch these levels. Very interesting. This is 216.95, 213.43, 209.40s, and 206.24. Just very interesting here on McDonald's. Tesla. So what's going on with Tesla? our favorite ticker, volatility abounds. So, what we mentioned on Tesla, I believe, was that if the 780s, we have an area here, 780s up into the 870s, right? And so the expectation off of, um, I believe it was here, I could be wrong, was there's a possibility we can get up to the 850s into the 870s, right? But we first have to get through where? The 819s. Where did we hit our head? The 819s drew us back down to the 780s, went below, pulled us back above. So if you go back, each time we've touched the 780s, we've sort of gone back up until, um, this day, I'll say, on this week. And then now we're looking at it, we're sort of back in the 780s. So the question is, will the buyers step in? For me, I'm just a spectator until they clear the 819s and give us bullish continuation above that. Then that opens up the 850s, maybe the 870s, 880s, and we can go higher. But right now, this is not a bad sign that we held the 780s on the week, right? So if we buy back up though, because each time we've touched this, it's been a light feathery touch, and then we've gone exploding back to the upside, light feathery touch, and you think that we're going to explode back. This time we pulled right back into it, so it's magnetic. We want to see if we see an explosion. Watch for the break of the 819s. If that happens, look for bullish continuation above that. If not, if we reject again, we may drift right back to the 780s, right? And then at some point, if these 780s don't hold, that opens up these lower levels down through the hitch at the 740s, 747-ish is what that looks like, and down into the 713s, maybe lower, right? But you never want to bet that we're going to see a drastic change in what has been happening. What has been happening is that people have been buying the 780s, right? So we want to see if that continues. If that pattern changes, then a new pattern will emerge, and we have to watch for negative drift if that pattern does change. But I will not be trying to get long the 780s. I'd rather the buyers confirm to me that they feel that there's more value to the upside in the weekly time frame, and a break above the 819s and bullish continuation above, to me, is potential proof of that. Just the probabilities of that one I like a little bit better than trying to play the 780s, unless someone wants to sell some premium below this, which would be interesting if you did on like on a vertical or something. That's a possibility because your risk would be limited, but not gonna get into that. Where are we? Because where you would sell would be the question, right? But that's not something we're going to discuss right now at all. And let's see. So, ZM. So, didn't quite hit our 460s. And that is unfortunate. Didn't quite hit the 460s. That's what we wanted to see. Didn't happen. But we're going kind of sideways here. And this little trend that we drew, we're still going. So we'll see if we hold this trend and if we can bounce. Right. And it's a funny trend line from all the way back in January. We pull back to it, bounce, bounce, bounce. Now, technically, this is telling me go long. We'll see. I might play this next week, but it is testing the trend. It is ZM. ZM can be a little crazy, so we'll see how this works out. Um, before area, the 460 area to the downside, the 401s in between. We do have a hitch at the 410s that we have seen in the past. 423s is also a level that we've seen in the past. We'll see how this works out with ZM, right? We all know the narratives on ZM and quarantine and companies, but I think what's interesting is a lot of companies are considering a hybrid model moving forward where the only option may not be working inside the office. So that's interesting, right? For decades, many workers have been just championing and asking, hey, they'd rather telecommute. And right now, it seems as if a lot of companies do feel that that is slight issues with my microphone at the moment. Just not just a temporary thing, but it may be a permanent option going forward. We'll see how that works out on ZM. But ZM being ZM, let's take a peek over at GOOSE, and GOOSE popped on earnings. We pulled back. We held the 40 area. Look at that. One flare down, two flare downs, three flare downs, and we're off to the races. If we squeeze higher, this will be a nice rise here on GOOSE. And the next level we have is the 4740s. Am I going to be playing GOOSE? Probably not, but just to give you these levels, 4740s and 5216s are next up. If we can't continue to go higher, then watch for the retest of the 4390s, then the 4140s on GOOSE. Let's check out DLTR. Dollar Tree, interesting. So earnings are coming up, I believe, in March, and we did hold the 106s. We didn't see any negative drift below this area. So we have to see if we retest the 111s. So I'll be watching Dollar Tree. Kind of went sideways here. So I don't want to break with the 108s to show me a little bit of momentum to the upside, at least a run of $1 or two. So we'll see if we can see drift into the 111s, but that we're holding the 106s is definitely a good thing. We'll see how this holds up. But definitely interesting here. We'll see on Dollar Tree. If you sort of squeeze the chart up, you can kind of see the pattern here. But we'll see, sort of meandering a bit. But we'll see if the 106s hold and we get a slight run headed into earnings. Let's see, did I have this? Okay, target kind of going sideways a little bit, meandering below the 194s, and we're above the 187s. We have to see if it's kind of sideways. Just it is holding the 187 area, right? But I'm just waiting on target. We'll see. I haven't been motivated to jump into this yet. So waiting on target, but the 187s are level, 189.90s, 192s, 194s on target. But if we drift below the 187s, maybe we see a dip into the 184s, maybe. But we have to see. I'm just not super excited about target right now. Let's check out Whirlpool. And if we remember, Whirlpool, look at the earnings drop. And we kind of did expect this because we're wondering how good durable goods sales would be during the pandemic. And definitely not great. So we did pull back into the 200s. We dipped a little bit into the 190s and we're back above. As long as we stay above 194, we could have drift back to the 200s. If we can separate from the 194, we do want to break at the 187s. That opens up the 180s. But right now on Whirlpool, sort of the same thing where we don't have, at the moment, doesn't seem to be major range. We're not trending in either direction, more going sideways. FedEx, we needed to be bullish above the 258s. We did see a break of that area and sort of a new pattern emerge, but it's just slapped back down, right? And we did play the initial break long on this, and that was, a good trade, but jumped out quickly just because I am not a truster of FedEx usually, unless we have like this, a good dip trampoline. Like, so that makes sense. But once it starts to do some of this extension, I want proof. It's got to show me that it's definitely going to go. But we're back below the 258s. We'll see what happens on this. This was an area that was difficult to break. right? Broke above, couldn't hold above. So you'd expect this on the pullback to hold the 258 area and then trampoline to the 271s. That did not happen. So just watching this, I'm wondering if there were people that wanted to, that averaged heavy, that on this drawback up, because this has been an area that they just, were scaling out on this push up. But we'll see on FedEx. But interesting 258s back below that area. That's an important area to, get above. If we can, if you're bullish on this, you want to stay above 258s and you want this to be bullish above this area. Goldman Sachs, Gwen Stefani. Look how insane this thing is. Financials is just nuts. So just all you can do is just watch, right? Interest rates are going crazy right now, and stimulus package on the way. So just financials are nuts. As long as financials hold, right? Even though tech could be interesting, as long as financials hold, um, it's a good chance the markets won't die. And if you're looking at financials are not dying. Financials are definitely holding. In fact, they're doing more than holding. Look at this. Look at this buy up on Goldman Sachs. Now, the question you'll ask is, am I long Goldman Sachs? Well, I'll talk to Lisa because it's above my retracement area because I'm a retracement trader. So when I'm not in my comfort zone, which is retracements, I tend to lean towards her expertise and her strategy of using her power of pivot script to find these levels when things start to move this way. So for me, not sure where Goldman Sachs may go, but I just think it's just how it's stair stepped up, right? You can just watch this each level. You've seen a reaction. Just interesting. So we'll be watching this next week, and I will be using sort of how the financials move on the intraday basis as a way to sort of play tech off of it. We'll see how that shakes out this upcoming week. Take a peek at the SPY, which I usually spend my time looking at the futures, but want to watch these 380, see 388 hold, but nice pullback here. Are we bearish? No, still bullish. Like there's still a bullish lean to the market. We just have to see what happens this week. And what we have to remember is that the market usually rebalances itself, right? So if we're just buying, stimulus packages on the way. It's a lot of different things that are coming that could be good for the economy. But the longer the stimulus package takes, it sort of brings about more doubt, right? So that's all really, really interesting. Just be careful this week. Remember, it's still risky out there. Don't have to always go full size. Just be careful. Just don't have any bias. Whatever you use, whether it's Bollinger Bands, whether you're a fundamental trader, whatever you're doing, it seems as if the momentum movers have been what has taken over the marketplace. Just whatever is moving on momentum, people buy. So just be careful not to try to, I'll say, front run or preempt what you think may happen in 2021 based on what happened in 2020. Just play what the chart gives you. If you like this video, please go ahead and tap that like button. And if you'd like to receive more content like this, not just from me, but also from Elisa, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Power of Pivots, where you can look forward to receiving videos from me and videos from Elisa as she shows you how she utilizes her power of pivot script to find great pre-market, retail hours, and post-market entries and swing plays in just multiple types of tickers, whether they be penny stocks, whether they be blue chips, so that she gets those all. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend and are prepared for this trading week. Thanks again.